Morning, Taylor. How are you?
Hi, Lorato. I'm well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm great. Welcome to Unhinged podcast. We are happy to have you join us today, and we are excited to learn from you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do?
Sure. So I'm a licensed architect. I'm licensed in the United States. I live and work here. I work all over the country. I do have a few projects internationally in select places. Primarily, my work is here, but I did write a book called Conscious Home Design, which actually hit #1 bestseller in 7 different countries. So I feel really proud of that achievement. And so people all over the world are getting help from that knowledge. And I also recently started certifying other designers and architects in the conscious home design system so that they could give more value to their clients wherever they are in the world. So my focus is more local, but I also have a global outreach. So I'm really, really honored to be on your show today.
Thank you very much. To someone who doesn't know or have an idea of what conscious home design is, what would you say that is to them?
Sure. You know what I've found is I think that very often when I mention conscious home design to people, their mind typically starts thinking of ecological home design. They start thinking of green building, techniques or materials or methodologies and sort of earth first, domes or alternative materials, hemp crete or things like this. But conscious home design, as I have defined it, is more about the intention of building a home around the people that are going to live there. I found that so it's completely agnostic for style or materials. If you want to use concrete versus wood frame, it doesn't matter in conscious home design. And if you like a modern style or if you like a more classical style, that doesn't matter either with conscious home design. So whether you're building a cottage or a castle or a style that's brand new or a style from 100 years ago, any of those will work with conscious home design. It's really more about the space planning and the program for any designers who are familiar with that, what programming really is. It's something I found in college that so much of the design that the instructors were showing us and that the students were presenting, as for their projects, it was very style focused, very, very style forward. They would find their favorite designer and they would just copy that or be inspired by that or influenced by that, and they would really get into these sculptural, designs, and they're very beautiful. It gives you a wow factor, right? But in homes, most people, they don't live that way, and that wow factor may look nice, but it may not be very practical for daily living. And so my heart was naturally drawn to function first, uh, rather than style first. And so it's really a deep dive into who is going to be living in a space and what are they going to be doing there? What kind of lifestyle are they wanting to create for themselves? How many times per day or per week will they be cooking a home cooked meal versus just throwing together something quick or take that can inform the design of the kitchen. And what kind of creative activities do they do? Are they interested in whatever that is? Maybe it's podcasting, or maybe it's an art studio, or maybe it's dancing. So people have all different types of ways that they express creativity. And so it's really just understanding who you are and what you like to do, and let's build opportunities for that in your home. Of course, we're going to make it look beautiful. Style is important. It needs to feel like home for you. You want to get a little bit a lift and a little bit of inspiration from your home. But that's not where you start. It's not what really ultimately moves the needle of your happiness and satisfaction, over a period of years and decades that you're inhabiting your home. So that's really the whole conscious home design sort of philosophy and my approach to helping people.
Oh, okay. So it's more of the function and how who occupies that space is going to function within the space.
That's right. Yeah. It's human centered rather than building centered, you
Okay.
know.
You referred to a research, the Harvard study research that talks about the study of adult happiness. How does that correlate to conscious home design?
So while I was researching for the book, I came across the Harvard study for adult happiness. And it's been running for over 80 years. They've put thousands of people through it and they've tracked them through their whole life. And all the original people, I believe, are passed away now, but they're even going on to their children. And thousands of people every year, they check in with them and say, "How are you doing?" You know, it's a very thorough questionnaire. And they check in with all these people and they just track it. And they have found that regardless of their successes or failures or health challenges or all the ups and downs of life, they found that the single biggest predictor of how long people lived and how happy they self-reported was that they found that it tied into the quality of their relationships. And so this was profound for me to realize that, oh, okay, that's the single biggest predictor of human happiness and how long we live is our relationships. And so relationships, this is also a key distinction. Relationships was not exclusive to our romantic relationships. They're not talking about our spouse or our partner, our boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever. That is included. That is part of a relationship. But if you're single, that doesn't mean you can't have a long, happy life, right? Or so relationships expands. And so in my book, Conscious Home Design, I talk about the three broad categories of relationship. There are many kind of relationships we can all think of, but all of them are going to fit into one of three broad categories. And those categories are giving, receiving, and reciprocal. And so if you think about that, our reciprocal relationships are the ones that we have with our friends, our colleagues, our peers. You and I have a reciprocal relationship. We're standing on equal footing and we have a give and take exchange. It's reciprocal. The relationships that I have or that we have that are giving are those where we are providing the primary knowledge or care. So for our children or those that we teach or those that we mentor, for plants and pets and animals, where we're the primary caregiver. That's a relationship. Even if you're just talking about taking care of your house plants or your garden, that's a relationship you're having. So it's a giving relationship. Of course, all relationships have an element of give and take. We receive by giving in these relationships, but we are the primary giver. And then we also have our receiving relationships, those with our teachers, our parents, our elders, our heroes or sports figures, our religious figures, anyone that we gain knowledge, wisdom, love, care, nurturing. Those are our receiving relationships. And so as we move through life, Lorato, we're all going to have different periods where we feel more or less, like if you have a young child, then it's going to feel like for a few years, all you're doing is giving, 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 and it's going to feel unbalanced. But over the course of life, as you move through that, a rich life is going to have some balance of all three types of relationships. And each person has to find their own rhythm and what works for them. Knowing this as a designer, I said, well, let's see if we can, what would a house look like if we intentionally built it so that it provided opportunity for all three types of relationships. And what if we took that even one step further and said, not just the home, but what if every room in the home was intentionally designed to provide opportunity for all three types of relationship? An example I like to use of that to give people to illustrate the in very tangible terms is a bathroom. So people, oftentimes just think the bathroom, oh, it's just a utilitarian space. It's where we go to wash our body and do our business. It's, it's not really a place where you think about relationships, necessarily. It's a very functional space. But a trend that we're seeing, I don't know how culturally you're seeing this in Botswana, but in the United States, we're seeing bathrooms made where oftentimes they will have two sinks side by side so that two people can be brushing their teeth or washing their face or whatever. Sometimes you'll see oversized showers with two heads where people can even shower together, separately, but together. And also a large tub, a soaking tub or a jacuzzi tub. Different cultures, Japan is really into their soaking tubs. And so you can make a tub that's big enough for two as well, if that appeals to you, to your sensibility and the kind of intimacy that you would want to share with someone. If not, that's fine. But those are several examples of reciprocal relationships or even with your kids. Some people want to take a bath with their kids. It's whatever your lifestyle is, there's opportunity to be in the bathroom together. Now, you can also create a giving relationship in your bathroom by having, a plant. If you have a sunny window or even a nice light that you can keep on for it, or a fish bowl, with a little goldfish swimming around in there to just for a little bit of life, to bring life and happiness. And you go in there, you give a little bit of food every morning when you brush your teeth, and there it is. And you say, "Hello, fish." It's just a little connection you can have. And you can certainly put a quote or a photo of one of your elders or ancestors or a hero or someone that you draw inspiration from, and so while you're there, making yourself ready for the day to present to the world, you can take a moment to reflect. That helps me. Someone's feeding me, that inspires me. And so you can nurture yourself, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally and even spiritually by taking that moment to remind. So this is a way that you can build all three types of relationship, even into a 5-minute, bathroom morning routine, and so these are just tiny little things that you can do, but over time, it's like a compounding interest, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. The dividends, it's incalculable how big the impact can be on our lives. It can turn your life in a good direction, in a positive direction, just by feeling these connections with ourselves and the world around us.
So space can either, the spaces that we exist in can either connect us more, or they can weaken our relationships with others, depending on, how we say it.
um Certainly, the design of our spaces. So Winston Churchill had a great quote. Winston Churchill, he came out with this one quote that is so apt, and he said, "We shape our buildings, and thereafter they shape us." And that is so true, right? Because we design it once and we build it once, but then there's that structure, and now for the rest of our time, it's telling us turn left or turn right or go here. It's like we now have to move around within whatever sort of maze we've created for ourselves. That can help and create flow, or it can hinder and create friction, in our activities and in our day to day. So it's certainly, it really does play a dramatic impact for us, whether we're aware of it or not. Our buildings, our homes are influencing us in subtle or overt ways because we spend so much time in our homes. It really makes sense to focus on a good flow there, because it's where we rest, it's where we recharge, it's where we grow, it's where we take time to let our hair down and be who we are and express and do personal development.
We talked about the different types of relationships mattering for our well-being. We touched on the, design patterns or choices that help us build these opportunities that create deeper connections. Now, when you think about what the home truly needs to provide, right? What framework do you use?
Um, that's a great question. When I look at the traditional home, it's really creating shelter. I think most basic homes and architecture is really just beautiful shelter. Hopefully, it's beautiful. It's giving us a place to sleep, to eat, to bathe, and hopefully there's a little bit of extra space to just relax and hang out. So these are very basic human needs, right? They serve a basic function, but there's famous psychologist Abraham Maslow, who through the 1950s, for the next 40, 50 years, his system really evolved and has stood the test of time. And he's famous for what's known as the hierarchy of human needs pyramid. And it's at the bottom are our physical needs that we need, like shelter and sleep and food. But we're not animals. We're more complicated than that. We have big brains, we have strong emotional lives. Not that animals don't have emotional lives too, and are thinking, but we know from studying ourselves more intimately that we all have needs for love and belonging and connection. We want to feel good at something, like we're skilled, like we've accomplished something. We want to have personal development. We want to have creative expression. So we want to have these other things, these higher needs. Otherwise, life is very monotonous, and we're just like a robot going through life. And so, it's life can be challenging. Sometimes our job or society makes it, and it feels very robotic. So we can then nurture ourselves and feed ourselves if we design a home. I started asking myself, as I learned about Maslow's hierarchy of human needs pyramid, I said, well, I can see in the home that it's only hitting 2 or 3 points on the pyramid. All these other things, they're sort of left up to chance. Like our people may or may not get those in their life. It's up to them to go chase it, basically. But I'm saying, well, if you didn't have a kitchen, it's very hard to prepare nutritious food for yourself. And for a few years we can live, out of a microwave and a toaster oven and a kettle to boil water, but over decades our nutrition, we're going to get malnourished, and our health is going to suffer from that. And by the act of dedicating space to an activity, it helps us achieve and perform that activity so much more easily. And so I asked myself, if we wanted to hit every level on the human needs pyramid in our homes, in our designs, in our architecture, and design it in, what would that look like? So that just the act of dedicating space to an activity, to a creative expression activity, to a physical activity that you like to do, to opportunities for love and connection, to opportunities for personal development and growth, and spiritual practice, a meditation or a prayer room, a little alcove where you can set that up. These things are we're building it into the bones of our architecture. And so in conscious home design, I wanted to explore what would it look like if we intentionally created opportunity for everyone to have not just a few of their human needs met, but every need on the pyramid, on the human needs pyramid. What would it look like? What would your home look like if we did that? Not everyone is going to hire an architect. It's a rare opportunity to be able to create your life, and create your future with so much control and planning. But most people are going to have a home that is already built, and they're just going to make do. They're going to do the best they can with what they're given, what they have. And so if you don't have the opportunity to actually shape rooms and walls to your specifications, then find any space that is large enough, hopefully, for you and your family, and then you can customize the rooms with how you locate the furniture, how you put the photos and everything, and you can reinforce all of those things. So, for instance, if you are having, we talked about the relationships, 3 types of relationships, and you can build opportunities for those relationship connections in every room in your home. But you can also look at opportunity for meditation or prayer. If you can set up a little corner and that's perhaps shielded off with a screen or a curtain, then you can feed yourself. You can take 5 minutes in the morning or 20 minutes in the evening before bed, and have a little personal time, spiritual time, connection time there. And even just 5 minutes a day, if you build the space for it, you're building success into your life. Because, I think the most famous painting in the world Lorato, I mean, one of the most famous, top 10 most famous paintings in the world that most people would know of is the Mona Lisa, the woman who's smiling, Leonardo da Vinci's painting, you know. And I was looking, you know, reading some details and facts about it because there's no eyebrows on it. And it turns out that the paint pigment, you know, over hundreds of years, it's faded. But in me learning more about the painting, I found out that it took him more than 10 years to complete that painting. And so this really called to mind the practicality of architecture. You know, architecture is really responsible for so many of our human achievements and advancements. Medicine, science, art, technology, all of these developments are made possible because we were able to build, you know, control our environment and build space that was dedicated to the pursuit of a certain activity. If we didn't have architecture, then all of our human achievements would be basically limited to what you could perform on, you know, a sunny afternoon, you know, because as soon as the weather changed or wild animals came or whatever, then you'd have to pack up, and where would you keep it safe, you know? And so by having a dedicated art studio, Leonardo da Vinci was able to work on this painting and put it aside, you know, either store it or leave it set up, and just and whenever inspiration came or whenever he had a few minutes from a break from another project, he was able to come over and work on this a little bit more. And so it's the same thing with every activity we do. If you say, I want to have 3 healthy, nutritious meals every single day, having a kitchen where you can prepare those meals is going to exponentially increase the chances of your success in that goal. If you say, I want to have a rich spiritual life, then having not just church on Sunday, you know, once a week, but having a prayer room or corner or a little wall altar or a small little temple sanctuary in your home somewhere is going to give you the chance to connect daily with that intention. If and same thing with all of our activities, all on the human needs, you know, with our, like we talked about, with the connection with our relationships, but also with our creative expression, whether it be if you play a musical instrument or you like to do sculpting or you like to paint or you like to do podcasting or you like to do creative writing, whatever creative spark you glow with, that's what we want to dedicate space for in your home, if possible, you know. And so we're looking for ways to, the very act of dedicating space to it is self-reaffirming. It tells you, oh, this is important to me. Even just seeing that you've dedicated space to that, even if you don't engage in the activity, it's positive feedback for your own psychology that says, oh, this is important to me. This is valuable to me. This is part of my value structure, and I have the opportunity to live my values. And that makes you feel like your life has meaning and purpose and possibility. If you realize, oh, I can achieve my goals because I have opportunity to do it, then life doesn't feel as hopeless, right? So conscious home design is really about love and hope and human potential and helping everyone create the next best version of themselves from wherever their starting point is. Wherever we meet you at, we're just going to work with you from there and just help you grow.
Now, a
That's the
little
big
question for.
idea. That's the big goal anyway. Yes, we do our best.
Okay. Yeah, the point is to help elevate in a way. Do you think there's a way that base can or home design can curb loneliness without the interactions of humans?
So, that's a really good question. There's so much loneliness and disconnection and isolation in the world, and particularly in modern society where everyone's in their own little cubicle, in their own little compartment, separate from each other. Even you may be surrounded by people. You may live in a city and live in an apartment building with 100 other people, but you may only know one or two of them by name, and you might not even have a good relationship with those people. And so it can be very isolating, even in the midst of a crowd. Um, so limiting feelings of loneliness is is really important work. Um, you know, I have to recognize the limitations of my skill set and my expertise. I am not, you know, a counselor or a therapist. I don't, it's so deep. You know, people specialize their whole career in helping people connect with themselves and finding their own joy and what makes them happy and how they can engage and minimize the feelings of loneliness and isolation. Yes, to some degree, I have to stay in my lane as an architect and say, I'm here to help you. Why don't you tell me what makes you feel happy and connected and, fulfilled. And then let's shape space around that to meet your goals, because everyone is a little bit different, in terms of their needs, whether how introverted or extroverted they are, what phase of life they're in, how what their age is. People have very different needs. And of course, there's some fundamental needs that almost everyone has, that we can address, but it's very much a personal thing. In the Conscious Home Design book, I talk about the big idea, and all these different things with Maslow and the three types of relationships and actually many other subjects. We're just scratching the surface here. We're trying to talk about some of the major deep points that really move the needle, and it's the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, that will give people the most impact. But it's just a book. I also created a companion workbook that goes with it that has all of these exercises and worksheets that are designed to extract those questions, that knowledge, that information from each individual. And so if you want to apply the concepts in conscious home design to your own unique experience, then and in fact, I partnered with a licensed psychotherapist and social worker to generate the questions. This person read my book, and we worked together to create questions that were designed to get at those deeper emotional and personal value structure questions, so that we can get to the real meat of the issue, so that we can really build that around people. So, I've done the best I can by partnering with someone and help to get that information out, but it's not really my place to say this is what everyone should be doing for that. We touched on it a little bit already about the three types of relationships. So even if you're living alone, there is opportunity to focus on your giving relationships and focus on your receiving relationships. And you can certainly have two chairs at your dining table or two chairs in your living space, so that if you do invite a friend or a guest over or a relative, that you have a place to eat together or sit and talk together. It's just about creating the opportunity for those connections.
Okay. Now that's quite a good answer. I've heard you mentioning something about a sunny window effect, right?
Yeah.
Now, you explore this idea or concept. What is the science or the psychology behind it? What does that mean, and why does that matter?
Ah, yes, Lorato. Okay. So I have not been to Botswana. I expect it is very sunny most of the time.
Very.
Yes. Yes. I happen to live in northern United States on the Canadian border. And here it's very cold for many months of the year. We have snow, and the days are very short. We only get 10 hours of daylight for many months at a time, and the nights are long, and sun is life for those in a cold climate. And so this is something that I noticed just growing up, that, the family pet, the family dog or the family cat, they would always be curled up on the floor or on a chair if there was a beam of sunlight coming in the window. That's where they would go. They'd hang out. And I noticed that the very same room, if a cloud came by, or you shut the curtains, suddenly it was not as attractive and inviting and welcoming as it would be if the sun was streaming in and filling it full of light. And so we're naturally drawn to the sun. The sun is life. Sun, it invigorates us. Not too much sun, obviously, but just the right amount in your home. And so here also, people are very into, not everyone, I guess, but there's a lot of focus on fitness. I think a lot of people are as more people work in office jobs and they're having more sedentary life, spending many hours a day seated at a computer, or, not getting a lot of exercise, then people are trying to work out, and they want to have a membership to a gym where they can lift weights or use machines to keep their endorphins up and keep their mood happy, and then keep their body optimized so they don't get too fat, and that they can keep their heart rate strong and everything. So one of the things that people are doing is they're trying to build a gymnasium, either in their basement or in the garage or in any leftover space. And if you don't love to exercise and do your workout, then you're going to just kind of shut the door on that and just not go there. You're going to have you've dedicated space for the activity, but the environment is not inviting. It's in a dark, musty closet or something. And so this is just, one example. I'm using exercising as an example because it's a common hurdle that people have. It's like, oh, I know I should exercise, but I'm not doing it. So, okay, in conscious home design, I would then say, what kind of physical activity do you like to do? We don't want to make exercise feel like a chore. Is there something you can do that you enjoy? Do you enjoy doing yoga? Do you enjoy doing some sort of martial arts workout? Do you enjoy dance? What do you like to do? And so then we say, is there an opportunity to create a little space for that activity that perhaps is in a room with a sunny window so that when you go there, it's actually inviting you in and saying, welcome, come dance, come work out, come move your body and feel inspired and get that life blood flowing. And so we can use the sunny window effect for actually any activity that we want. If we're setting our goals to accomplish a certain thing and we're having resistance in our doing it, then the sunny window effect is a way that we can give ourselves a little lift, sort of remove a friction point and put the benefit of nature working for us.
We managed to establish that architecture, it's psychological. It affects us in all aspects of life, even if we don't consciously know it, but one way or another it does. Be it the way we structure our windows, the way we structure our doors, our entrances, the materials. But can you tell me, like, what challenges arise when you are trying to design for both, privacy and connection within a shared living context?
So you touched on two things there. And the first part of what you said, I want to spend a moment there to clarify that, and because it's an excellent point that you touched on. And I think listeners would really value some words to clarify, and sort of circle around that concept. And you mentioned, the psychology and how spaces are going to, affect us. I think these days people are pretty aware. I think everyone's aware of the mind-body connection. You know that if your body is not feeling well, it's hard to keep the mind cheerful and optimistic, and vice versa. If the mind is positive and optimistic, then that's going to send a little bit of good energy to the body and help us feel more energized and more willing and positive. So it goes both ways. There's a strong mind-body connection. So my job as an architect is to extend and expand upon the mind-body connection to the mind-body environment connection. And so we can build our environment in a way that it's going to reinforce our minds and bodies. Yes. And so, and help us create that sort of positive cycle. And so that's, we touched on that before about Winston Churchill's excellent quote of "we shape our buildings thereafter they shape us." So we want to shape them in a way that's going to positively reinforce what we say we want, what we say we want for our minds and what we say we want for our hearts, right? So that's part one. I just wanted to, clarify the mind-body environment connection. Now that part two of what you just said is finding the balance between connection and privacy. And so this is really going to be shaped individually because every person has their own unique set of needs. One person may be happy with just a few minutes of interaction. Another person may want constant attention over and over. They really want to be, glued at the hip, we say, so to speak, just side by side, always in contact. And it also depends on how old we are. Young children, they don't want to be alone at all. They always want to be, because their brains are learning. They just feed me all the time. Their brains are like little sponges, so they just want to be near you. Plus, it's a safety thing, so it's instinctual. As we get older, though, our needs for connection may change, and how much time and what quality of time. Is it going to be light, casual, like the kind of thing you can get at a coffee shop with a few people, acquaintances, or do you want to sit long and have a one-on-one meaningful conversation with a friend? So everyone's needs are going to be slightly different, and even within the same household, people will have their own needs. So the conscious home design workbook and process is really designed for when I work with people. I actually like not just one person, not just the person who's driving the project that says, "Taylor, I'll be your point of contact for our new home construction." But I like every member of the household, even kids that are like 6 years old, to go through the workbook with their parents and answer the questions as best as they can so I can get a profile of everyone. And then it's trying to find harmony so that everyone's needs are met. So it's quite individual. This is part of the art of the architect is to create that space in a custom way for each client, depending on their family lifestyle.
Does the different spaces, like for example, if the kitchen, the bedroom, the entryways, do they have a biggest emotional impact,
Mm.
or the spaces are almost all the same in terms of how we they affect us emotionally?
You ask such beautiful questions, Lorato. No one has ever asked me that question before. Which room has the biggest impact on your life? The truth is, the home acts as an ecosystem. It's a symbiotic whole. And it's like saying, which internal organs makes you function the best. And it's like, well, I need my lungs. I also need my heart. And yes, I need my stomach. I mean, I like them all. They're all good. They all have their place and they all support everybody else. Everyone's doing their own function. It goes back to Maslow's the hierarchy of human needs, right? We need more than just a bedroom and a bathroom and a kitchen. That will keep us alive. That's shelter. And we can start to that more homey by our intentionality and how we decorate it. But it's nice to have a little room to have a little bit more than that. So you can build space for connection with others. So you can maybe do some creative pursuit or a little meditation and prayer or relaxing and conversation and storytelling. So those kind of things. Yeah, they all have their place, and it also comes down to individual stuff. I think everyone would say, "Well, gosh, I really need my bedroom," because everybody needs to sleep. That's just so basic and essential. But someone might say, God, I am really, really enjoying my prayer sessions. And they might say the best room in the house for me is my meditation room, is my prayer room. Another person might say, what feeds me so much is playing my cello, playing my musical instrument, and having that little alcove that we designed or built, with some plants and a sunny window for me to play my music. That's the most important room for me. So people are going to choose their own adventure.
Is that the reason why we have spaces like man caves and all that?
That's right, sure.
I think touching on maybe going back a little bit on the sunny window effect, right? How can designers and homeowners like leverage the natural light to improve mood, productivity, and build on good habits within spaces?
When we go through the conscious home design workbook, which is sort of like a client discovery, and when I say I want to understand who are you, and what makes you tick, what activities are important to you, what feeds you, what helps you feel possible, what helps you feel alive, what helps you feel enriched and like you're living a fuller life, a more beautiful life. And we come up with those activities. We then say, okay, which activities are you struggling with right now in your current life? Which ones do you want, but you're not achieving? And then we look at why. Okay, do you have space dedicated to that activity? Yes, no. If you don't have space, then the first step is to try to create space for that activity so that you give yourself the opportunity, the chance to do it. If you have the space, but you're not doing the activity still, even if you have dedicated space, then we say, well, why? Is the dedicated space too cluttered? Is it full of junk and it's being used as storage rather than the space, the intention that's supposed to be there? Or is it because it's your music room, but it happens to be right next to the kid's bedroom, and the only time you get to play is after they go to sleep, and you don't want to do it because you're going to disturb them. So there's an adjacency problem. Maybe it needs to be in a different area of the home. Or perhaps, like I said in the example with the exercise equipment, that maybe it's um, a ugly or uninspiring place, out in the garage or in the basement, down underground, and you just don't want to go down there. And so then in that case, maybe we need to move it to a more inspiring location. So there's always a reason why you're having trouble. That if you're having trouble with something, whether it's external or whether it's internal, a motivation thing, we can look to changing the architecture in such a way to help remove those limitations and overcome um, the resistance.
Okay. Do you think the future of home design is changing in light of global shifts like climate, technology?
Well, if I had a crystal ball, I could tell you the answer to that. But I don't really know. Um, yeah, I think so. We've made tremendous leaps forward in the past 25 years. Really since in this new century, in this new millennium, um, we've seen amazing leaps forward in terms of being able to measure the energy use of a house, the impact of the building materials that we use, and how sustainable that is. Are we using a limited resource to construct something, or are we using something that's renewable? We have technology advances. We now have cameras and we have smart homes. You can put a thermostat on and you can control it from your phone at work. So you can say, "Oh, I'm about to come home. Please, warm up the house, or please cool off the house so that, it will be the right temperature when I get home." We have all sorts of technological and ecological advancements. I think this is wonderful growth for our buildings and for our homes. I don't see those things as the things that truly make us happy, though. Those things are great technological things, but they don't make us fulfilled as human beings. And so my work is focusing on the human experience, and that's what conscious home design is about. Before, this is interesting, Lorato, before I wrote Conscious Home Design, I was actually planning on writing a book called Green Picket Fence, and it was about, creating the having the dream of your own ecological friendly home. But as I wrote down my ideas and it started to evolve, I really realized that that wasn't the deepest message I had to share with people. And so there are experts out there who are masters at eco-friendly homes, and there are others who are technological wizards, and they know how to make everything connected. Your water heater and your stove and your cameras and your front door lock and everything. I focus on what makes you happy.
But still, how does it integrate into one's happiness? Because at one point, this is one way they have to work together in such a way that it's for the benefit of everything.
Sure, everything is connected. And so I think happy people are better citizens. Happy people are better neighbors. If a person is unhappy and they don't love their home, they don't love their life, then I don't think that person is going to be worrying very much about if the house they live in is environmentally conscious or energy efficient, right? Because they have bigger problems to worry about. When people feel happy and fulfilled, like their life is full of possibility and potential, they become better citizens. They become better neighbors. They become better world citizens. And now they have room to say, "Oh, how can I live a connected life that's how can I tread lightly? How can I walk the planet without destroying it?" And so when you fulfill people's personal needs first, they can then look to being, it's like world peace. Let it begin with me. So you want to start with inner harmony and then work outside from there. And so in conscious home design, if we're giving people the opportunity to be the best version of themselves, of course, treading lightly on the environment and the impact they're going to have in the world is definitely going to be included in the value system that they bring. And so we will look to within the resources of their budget, within what's available in the local economy to buy, what sort of building materials are prevalent and what's practical, what kind of labor is available to put just different things. We make the best choice. It's always site specific.
Yeah, I also think I was looking at it from this perspective. One time I was having a conversation with my friend, and he was talking about that when his friends visit his place, right? He wants to make sure that instead of spending a lot of time on their phones, scrolling on their phones, everybody's busy texting or doing whatever, and they're not being socially interactive and being in the present moment. What he has done is he has created like an extra room in his in his, so there are no phones allowed in there. There is no TV in there. It's just like a room where there are board games and all that, where everybody could be like mentally present, and be able to socialize and be active without the distraction of technology, distractions of cell phones, distractions of TV, and all that. So I think maybe that's the perspective I was coming from when I was asking that question in terms of technology. And
Yes, I understand. I think there is a need for us to unplug, from the technology, and screen time, and actually just take some time to check in with ourselves, have a little bit of meditation or have a little bit of reflection, journal a little bit, or just engage with the plant, and prune the leaves and water it, and just connect, ground yourself in reality, if that works for some families, for some lifestyles, to have an unplugged room, a sort of a device-free room, they can do that. One of the things I actually have experimented with is just not bringing my cell phone into the bedroom and just having an old-fashioned clock so I can know what time it is, and not being tempted if I wake up in the middle of the night because I need a drink of water to check my phone messages or something. It's like, who needs it? I don't need to be, if I get up at 3 in the morning to go to the bathroom and go pee, do I really need to check to see if I got any text messages or late night emails? I don't. And maybe it's going to turn my brain on and interrupt my sleep. So keeping the phone out, that's something that works for me, is to disconnect like that. Everyone has to find their own balance with that one.